So I am live. Add a guest to you. Okay. Let me see. I need to find you now. Go live with. Okay, cool. But I don't know how to add. Oh, I guess. Oh, have you joined it yet? You should be able to join or something. Let's see. Send message to your friend. Oh, wait. Let's see. There we go. Okay. So, is there a way to plug the earbuds in it so you don't get the feedback? Okay, good. Ah. Oh, okay, good. Okay, that's it. Let's accept. I'll just send a request. View. Go live with. Okay, good. Let's see. It should pop up in a minute. 3, 2, 1. Okay. I think you're coming in now. Yay! So we are going to be talking on Skype, but this is just recorded as well. We're doing this. Okay.
Okay. So, and on Skype, are they going to see us? No, are they going to see us on Instagram?
They won't see us on Skype. Only those who are on Instagram will see us.
And hear us.
Yes. Yes. They'll see and hear us. So other people will just hear us. You and I are going to be on Skype.
Okay. This is groovy.
Yeah, it's an experiment. You're my first try.
I know, you're my first try this time. I've done lots of Skype interviews and Zoom, all kinds of things, but not this one.
Let's see.
Okay, we got more people joining us, I can see.
Positive link, yeah. So we are getting ready for the Ade Show. Let's see, I need to post this for the show right now on Facebook so we know what is going on. Hello, waving back, right?
Hi, Natalie.
Know some of your friends?
Yeah, some of my friends are already here. This is so cool. Oh, wait, I'm getting flowers. I'll be back in a minute, okay?
Okay. Okay. So, yes, Barbara is joining me on the show live now. I'm multitasking. We're talking about, what are we talking about again? Identity and belonging. So I'm producing my show as well as do other things. So right now you're just experiencing the behind the scenes. So hey Natalie, I like that name. I've always liked that name. My niece loves that name too. Okay, wait. Something here. Let's do this. And let's do that. Okay, great. Oops, lazy. No, stop.
See what I got? I'm back.
Welcome back. I'm still doing producer duties right now.
Hi, Natalie.
Okay, great.
I just got, this is for us. I just came and delivered it. That's because we've saved so many people's lives with our good energy.
Perfect timing. Oh, shoot.
So that must be a good omen for the show, right? This is our first.
Yes, it is.
Do I need to do anything except holding?
No. You just sit there and look pretty.
Okay, so I really should have something to have my phone on, but okay.
You said what?
So what is your phone on? You have a stand or something?
No, just on my computer. So I'm going to have to move it now because I just have it on my computer.
So your picture is not, so I'm confused. So are you doing the whole thing on the computer?
No. I'm doing live Instagram on my phone.
Yeah, exactly. So how did you get the picture? You're not holding it like I'm holding it.
Yeah, because I have it leaning on my computer.
Okay. If I can figure that out. Leaning on the computer. Yeah. Is that better? Is
Yeah,
that?
that's perfect. Oops, mine's going to grow because I'm multitasking over here for now.
Okay, great. So I don't have to hold it.
No. Yeah, exactly. Don't do that. That's too much stress. Okay.
Hi, honey. Perfect. Now she says we're looking good. We're looking good. And you know, this the woman who's talking to us, Natalie, Star Psychic. She's from Georgia, where you're from.
Really?
Yeah, so say hi. Say hi to Natalie.
Hey. I love that you said where you're from. Okay, so that's live. And then I'm posting on Facebook right now.
Okay, so tag me on it. So
That's a good idea.
yeah, because then I have to go in and do it on my wall then
No,
too.
that's fine.
I usually do that, but because I'm multitasking now, my brain is working differently.
Okay.
But yeah, let me tag you in. Barbara. I need to get your bio too. You are. Alright. Let's go to life. How's Tim doing?
Tim is sending all his love. All his love.
All of it, right? Hello. Rick, was that Rick?
Rick Anderberg. Yes, hi, Rick Anderberg. And just live joined. We got a lot of people in the house already.
Yeah.
Because we're going to be talking about something really cool.
That's identity belonging. Excuse me. Oh.
On Facebook. So, okay, let me get your bio now.
My wonderful Barbara, thank you. See, we got flowers today, friends. We got flowers.
You got all your fans.
We got flowers. One of my clients sent it to me today for saving his life. Saving his life.
Wow. That is pretty awesome. Let's see. Okay.
What am I doing? Oh, your bio.
Like, you know,
sometimes
bio, right.
It's easy to take things for granted.
Because I used to have a movie.
Because I'm looking for holes in my computer. I'm just going to go.
You're the one in charge. I'm just here for the ride. Just like with everything else, we're just here for the ride, right?
I started it, right?
And I don't think everybody listening in knows that you and I, we go way back.
Way back.
Way back. Probably even before this lifetime.
I would think of my interviews with guests as a blind date, but I don't remember the first time we met. Or how it even happened. I just reached out.
Now you've got lots of echo. Did you do something with the sound? Suddenly it's...
No, I'm still here. Oh, well, let's see. Well, which one are you listening to? You should still be hearing me.
I do, but I hear two of you now. I
know.
One of you.
Oh, I'm going to stop in a minute because
I'm still in producer mode. Let me do this. I just got to remember to.
Okay, I'll take a break.
Copy and paste this. All right, stand by.
Okay. Oh, the red cup.
The red cup. Cheers.
And now I hear you good. That's better.
Okay, good.
Yeah.
Been a seeker alive for other seekers of life, all books all brotherhood.
Hi, Gerda. Long time no see.
Now what I'm going to do.
Okay.
All right, stand by. There we go. Yes.
Mm-hmm.
We are united in love. We united and united in truth. So welcome to this house of love. Super multifaceted as always. I'm not even going to complain because I love doing it clearly. Because I believe people do what they love. So there's no point in me saying, like the host. Both brag that multitask. So, alright. So, ladies and gentlemen, thank you very much. Let me go into the chat room, see what's in there, make sure everything is as it should be, and you can hear me. Yes. Take that off. Let's make sure. Yeah, you can hear me. Good. Okay, let's start the show.
Okay.
Good afternoon, good evening, good night, good day to you wherever you are in the world at this very moment. Thank you for tuning in. You are listening to the Ade Show on 12 Radio, 12radio.com, where we are changing the way you dance with life and the way you create your reality. I am your host, Ade Anifowose. And I have a guest in the house. We're doing something different. So yeah, because we're doing something different, we're powered by love. That's what this is all about. We're using the infinite power of love to promote and develop the human potential. If you're joining us live, thank you. If you're joining us because you listen to the archive, thank you. Whoops, Daisy. If you are listening to the on-demand, thank you. Those of you in the chat room that listen regularly, I am actually streaming on Instagram as well.
Instagram, you can see us. You can see us.
Barbara's here. She's all excited. So I'm getting that on, doing that thing, and now we're good. I'm focused now, I think. It is Transformational Tuesday, February 19th, 2019. Time check is 6 after the hour. We always start the show with my brother, my friend, John Stringer, reminding you to welcome yourself home. The title of that song is You Are Welcome Here. You are welcome to this house of love, and I want to invite you to join us in the chat room. To get to the chat room, simply go to, what do? Go to 12 Radio, 12radio.com. Top left, click on chat. And when you do that, you must have a Facebook account because our chat room is on Facebook and it's a closed group. And that means everything you post in there will stay in the chat room until that changes. But right now, as we know, everything you post in there stays in it's a closed group, so it stays in the chat room. But we're still inviting you to encourage you, suggest that you be responsible for what you do share in the show. Silent listeners, Michelle, Tanya, New Jason, everybody else, those of you who are not in the chat room, thank you for being here. Thank you for tuning in. Thank you for saying yes to life. You get to see some of the things. Those of you who listen regularly, you get to see what I'm like during the show. And don't think about that clock. That clock is just exhausted. It's just in the moment. So it stays in the moment. It reminds me that time is an illusion. So It's going to be there till the end of the show. Let's see. What do I want to tell you? I want to invite you. I want to invite you to come to check out my website, lifecoachade.com. Lifecoachade.com. And you can find out more about me, my services, and everything. And you can also find me on 12listen, 12listen.com. Number 1, number 2, listen.com. We're in the chat room. We're on Instagram. If you have questions on Instagram, we may get to it, but we'll just see. It's a first day thing. It's an experiment. I don't know if I'll do it next week. We'll just see how today goes. So, don't hold me like,
I'm really honored. I get to be the experiment, right?
I don't know why I don't hear you, actually. Why don't I hear you?
Okay, because then I turned the sound down on my... Can you hear me now?
I can hear you, but I'm hearing you on my... No, I need to hear you. And I'm pointing here because... Let's see. Okay, you're still here. Did you mute your Skype?
No, I didn't do anything.
Okay, I'm going to call you back.
On
because
Skype.
I don't hear... Let's see. I hear you on my producer headset, but I don't hear you
on Skype.
This is where I need to hear you.
Okay.
Okay, let me hang up and call you back.
Mm-hmm.
It's an experiment. This is a test.
So when she comes back, I'm going to read Barbara's bio to you. And we're going to jump in. Today's conversation is identity and belonging.
Okay. Can you hear me now?
Oh, wait. I think I know. I just might know what it is. That's that. Yeah, I've had some technical stuff this morning. It shouldn't be doing that, but it is doing that.
I hear you fine.
So, now, what I need to know is, if I'm not hearing you, then my listeners are not hearing you.
Well, that's not too good.
So, yeah, let's see. 1, 2, headset, 2, 1, 2, headset. Yeah, we should be fine. Something may have changed.
Can you hear me now?
No, well, I can hear you, but I only hear you my producer headset. I need to hear you here to make sure.
And it doesn't, you don't want to hear me on Instagram. No, that doesn't help.
Okay, you know what I'm going to do? Let's go here. And if I don't get resolved, we need to take a music break. And then we'll resolve the technical difficulty and come back into radio.
Okay, so what do you want me to do? Just stay on Instagram?
You stay there right now. Okay. Okay, so the listeners can hear you.
Good. Hello? Can you hear me now? Can you hear?
What's going on? Oh, I think I know what it is, maybe. Oh, you know what? I'm going to take a break. And I just want to make sure the listeners can...
Oh, somebody just wrote into us that they're hearing me clearly.
Yeah, on Instagram we're fine. But I'm talking on the radio, so...
Oh, okay.
If they can hear you in here, then I...
She always hears me in her head. Good girl.
So what I'm going to do is, I'm going to do this. I'm going to have my headset on.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, Bob.
Are we good?
Yeah, we're good. For whatever reason, I don't hear you on my headset, but I hear you, the producer. Okay, great. So check me out on 12listen.com. But if I mute this, they won't hear me. 12listen.com, one of the advisors. Okay, I'm going to jump in and tell you a little bit about Barbara. She has a long bio. We have what to talk about. I'm going to tell you. So, Barbara Berger has been a seeker and a guide for other seekers, for all people in her life. Her books are based on her life work, which has always been to try to find the way out of suffering. She's a scientist. She's a metaphysician. A quest to eat suffering has led Barbara to explore many different pathways and approaches: mental, physical, metaphysical, and psychological. I told you, and spiritual. Now, I want to go down here. It says, after leaving the U.S. in the mid-60s, in protest against the Vietnam War and settling in Scandinavia, Barbara continued her quest in the 1970s with a passionate interest in the role of food and in our mental and physical well-being, when she discovered in the early 80s that healthy foods and diet true well-being, and studied the science of the mind and the nature of consciousness, metaphysics, and finally, traditional spirituality and psychology. Now, on her website, which I'm going to give you now, it is beamteam.com. She beams you up. B-E-A-M, team as in group, right? Beamteam.com.
Beam team.
And on her page, she has child of a middle-class American, father, Pentagon military man, rebel, a runaway, St. Lawrence College, child bride. Whoa. See, what kind of identity I belong with? We might get into some of these. She's a hippie, a world traveler, a crusader, writer, expatriate. Am I saying that correctly?
Expatriate.
Expatriate. Okay, good. You say it for me and we'll move on. New age teacher, 3 children, 3 marriages, sick and miserable, single mother, single career woman, successful career woman, best-selling writer and lecturer, dedicated spiritual seeker. So, you see what I said about the bio? And I came across this recently when I was preparing for the show, and I said, this is so perfect. When we were talking about having you on the show, we were actually talking about doing something different.
Well, we were talking about this book here. That's why I just went over and got it.
Road to Power. But you know, the good thing about what we're talking about, it still ties in.
Definitely.
About 2 weeks ago, I was sharing my experience that happened in October, what I call a government retreat, when I was detained and had to come back to America, UK, and sharing my experience about what it's like to be back here, and being a Nigerian who was born in England and lived in America, and now I'm back here.
In England, the people should understand he's in England now. Ade, you're in. Yeah, exactly. So my listeners, they don't know. I'm in Copenhagen and you're in England. Well, neither of us are in America anymore.
You in America, so you're a person who's in America was born in America.
Yeah.
Moved from America.
Yeah.
And it was something that you said. I just want to say this to kind of get listeners to kind of see where we're going, and we can come back to this part later. I remember in our conversation, you talked about when you went back to America, when you went to visit. There's an echo.
Yeah, now there's somebody saying, it's one of my friends, she's saying that you're echoing.
Okay, let me try this. So, Barbara, can you still hear me?
I hear you fine.
Okay. Okay. I don't think this is going to hit. So I'm going to, I know what it is. I think. No, I got to move this closer. We're working out. Hey, Miracle Man is in the house. What you see, Mr. Miracle Man?
Now you're echoing. What did you do? We put it back where the way it was.
Okay, so let me move it away. How better? Is that better?
No? What?
Nothing different. Okay, let's keep going. If anything, I'll just stop doing live stream on.
See, now you're really echoing.
Okay, so I'm actually going to just stop Instagram. All right. Case. We're just going to stop because we don't need the echo. We don't need the distraction. And so, let's see. So we're just going to stay on what we're doing before. So here we go. People on Instagram. If you need to continue to listen to the show, even with the echo, you hear it now. Just listen and hear what I'm saying. Go to 12radio.com. Number 1, number 2, radio.com, and click listen now. All right, so we're ending on Instagram. Well, if I meet, oh, right, man. I think you are right. Oh, you're the best.
So we have a savior.
Yes, it's a miracle man. Am I still echoing?
Yeah, no, he did it. Yes. Yes.
It's a miracle man.
We got flowers for you, miracle man. Flowers.
Thank you, miracle man.
Thank you, miracle man.
I'm supposed to do, but there's so much going on. Anyway.
Really, it makes it's no echo now. Perfect. Thank you.
Yes, because I was supposed to do that. That's true.
Okay.
You were talking about when you went back to visit America, you didn't feel like you belonged.
No.
You feel like you were accepted. And as you kept talking, there was this parallel experience that we had. That we you experienced. It was new for me. And I said, you know what? Let's talk about independent. Yeah, that too. Identity and belonging. Because I believe that that's the root of everything that we're dealing with. There is a need for us to belong with a group of people, and also knowing who we are. And sometimes we don't spend a lot of time doing that. So we're trying, because we've been indoctrinated by parents, society, religion, or whatever, telling us who we are.
Exactly.
The journey of life is us being able to define ourselves for ourselves. So I know I've said a lot there. Just to lay that foundation for listeners to kind of know what we're talking about.
Yeah, but again, I mean, if we're gonna start there, I would just like to add my bit. I mean, the only way we can really deal with this problem of belonging, identity, is we need to really go back to basics and understand that we are divine souls, that there is only infinite intelligence, God, the good, whatever you want to call the great presence, and we are, you, me, and everyone else, we are a manifestation of divinity in human form. And so, I mean, that is our true identity. All the rest of the stuff that we're going to talk about, if we belong in America, or we belong in Europe, or if we belong in wherever, it really is, you could say it's like, what kind of an outer clothing are we wearing today? But we have to remember, if we're ever going to find peace of mind, and if we're ever going to experience the true brotherhood, sisterhood of man and women, that we're all God's divine children. And that
it's like, since we talked, and as I was preparing for the show, I've been thinking about this thing called identity, belonging. And for me, and I'm interested in hearing your definition, identity is really what you said. It's like, where did I come from?
What is our true identity?
What is my true identity, and what do I identify with?
Exactly. Well, that's another question.
What I identify with becomes how I define myself, how I carry myself. You know, if I go to, I don't know, this is a good example, since we're talking about identity and belonging, and I know that this is happening for me a lot. Since being back in UK, I'm around more Nigerians than I've ever been in the last 15, 20 years. And my experience seems like half of Nigeria are Christians. So I'm around a lot of Christians. And I know for myself that when I am around Christians, I always feel like I don't belong, like I'm different from them. And that's something that I wrestle with. And it's not like this really strong angst. It's just something that I recognize, because I'm defining myself as being spiritual and they're Christians. This is something different. But what I've had to look at is, no, there is no difference. It's just basically, that's just how to put it, a path that they're walking. They're still Nigerians, I'm Nigerian, and we have different belief systems.
Well, again, I mean, you're really talking about that, depending on where we're born and our background and all this different stuff. Each one of us has been programmed with the belief system of the family that we were born into, the society, the religion, the culture, the country. I mean, there are these cultural, sociological, religious differences, as you say, but that's all, you could say, something that we're programmed with after we get here. the divinity of each soul, the purity, the precious child that each one of us is. In that sense, we're all equal. But then we get born into these different environments, and of course that's the big problem, especially when we're programmed to think, you know, that women are inferior or black people are inferior or whatever, that all that stuff that's driving all of us pretty much crazy all the time. But also the other thing is, now your experience is newer than mine. I had this since I was very young. I ran away from home when I was 17, 18.
Let's talk about that. Let's talk about your journey.
Yeah, I mean, I lived in Washington, D.C. My father was a very high man in the Pentagon, and it was the Vietnam War was going on, and I had a boyfriend who had dropped out of college and got drafted, and so we were against the Vietnam War. Those were in the early days. And in those days, there was the draft. You didn't have a choice. You had to go to the army or you...
It should have been called the draft.
Exactly. So, and there was no such thing as conscientious objectors either. So Steve had a choice. Either he could go in the army or he could go to jail for 5 years. That was it. And so... And that was in the early days. There wasn't so much of the protest movement at that time against the Vietnam War. So we went underground, and we were underground for 2 years, where we were hiding from the army and running away. And we were in Europe, and we were in Canada, and we were in Mexico. And we ended up, the short version is we ended up in Sweden, where we got political asylum as political refugees. So that's how I came to Scandinavia, and then I wrote books about that, and was in the protest movement and so on. But so from a very early age, I had the experience of being an outcast from my family. First of all, my father, and he was a high military man, and to have a daughter who ran away in protest, that was not really very, very popular in the family. So not only did I lose my country, I also lost my family. And I was very young, and it had serious consequences for my life, as you know, too. I mean, when you get thrown into a new environment, another language. I mean, Scandinavia is a great place. I still live here now, but it was very, very stressful, of course. And I didn't go back to the United States for 20 years. So after I had been living in Scandinavia for 20 years, that was the thing I was telling you about. When I went back to the United States the first time to visit after 20 years, it was really weird. I felt like a foreigner there. I felt like a foreigner in Scandinavia because I didn't really belong here and didn't really speak the language and didn't grow up here. But then when I went so-called back to where I came from, I had been away so long, so I felt like I didn't belong there. So I felt it was really very shocking. I was actually 40 years old, so I had like 20 years almost in America and 20 years in Scandinavia. And I was sort of like in limbo. So this was identity and belonging. I definitely felt that I didn't belong anywhere. But then after feeling that I didn't belong anywhere, I also came to the conclusion that the only way I could deal with that was to say that I belonged everywhere and that I was a citizen of the world, because the values and the things that I was dedicating my life to, that is what is bringing us all together, or is hopefully will bring us all together, that we're all the children of this infinite universe, and that how are we going to, as you said at the beginning of this show, it's about love. How are we going to manifest that? How are we going to be relating to each other? So the fact that you're feeling a bit lost now, that you were sort of thrown out of America and you're back where you, I mean, I certainly understand the pain, the confusion, the anxiety that creates, because I've experienced it myself.
Yeah, and I want to ask you, that 20 years you left America, you ran away from home.
Literally.
Yes, that's what I mean, literally. You ran away from home. How did finding yourself, so to say, in Scandinavia, how did that experience of you running away from home, being in a foreign country, how did it affect your choices? How did it affect your relationship? What are the things that you had to wrestle with? And I'm sure maybe back then you may not have thought, well, it's because I feel lost, so to speak. But in reflecting back, there may have been some choices that you made because you were looking for home, a new home, so to speak.
Yeah.
Or maybe just looking for home.
Well, I think I've always just been looking for home. I mean, that's also basically what the spiritual quest is about, isn't it? That we want to come home to ourselves, and what does that mean? But I think the other thing is that when you suddenly are in a completely different country with a completely different language, I mean, in other words, now you came back from the U.S., at least in England they speak English and Nigerians speak English, but I was suddenly thrown in a society where they didn't even speak English. I mean, they do speak English, but I mean, they had a different language and a different culture. And I didn't speak their language. So you already there, you feel really like you're sort of like outside of everything. And you don't really get the jokes, and you don't really, so you don't really know what's going on. You're very aware of the fact. And also at that time, now Scandinavia has a lot of foreigners, but when we came at that time, we were like, everybody here was blonde and blue-eyed, and we had come from Mexico, and we were pretty dark and sunburned and so on, and everybody thought we were like American Indians. That was, you know, like, we were so exotic, and so we stood out compared to the people in Scandinavia. So just the whole feeling of being, it felt like landing on the moon. I mean, it felt like landing in, you know, like, what am I doing here? Plus, there was so much snow everywhere. It was like...
And you from D.C. You from D.C. You get so much snow that I
Exactly. So then I made up my mind that I had to learn the language. So I really learned the language fast, because you don't want to.
How did you learn the language? Is that a stone?
I mean, it's really, lucky for me, I mean, you just listen to people and you figure it out. So, I mean, I never went to school or anything, but now I speak fluent, I'm in Denmark, I speak fluent Danish, but it's like you got to learn the language if you want to talk to people and do stuff. I mean, it's so up until you do that, you're kind of like really outside of everything. So it was a really big shock to me. But the other thing that was really shocking for me to come to Scandinavia was when I came here, compared to the United States, it was like paradise in the sense of the social welfare programs. That Scandinavia is a very enlightened place compared to, I mean, everybody has health care.
That was in the 60s?
That was in the 60s compared to the United States, where, you know, I had lived in New York City first when I ran away from home in the slums. And I mean, if you didn't have a credit card and you were dying on the street, you could just lay there and die. I think it's better in the States now, but the contrast when I first came here, just that was so much more socially enlightened. That was also really made me think, you know, that this society here also has something great to offer the world. So there's so many things that go on when you're thrown into another culture, and you question all those beliefs that you've been programmed with.
Yes. And, you know, there are people who are listening who might say, well, I can't relate. Mm-hmm. But what I know you can relate to is you're thrown into a different experience. It could be you go into work, you hug your loved ones, then going to work, you get into work, and they say you're fired. You know, or you come home, you find out your maid is cheating. Or you go out, you have an accident. It could be something, it's basically something that you weren't planning for. So, yes, we're talking about identity and belonging, and really, you know, asking ourselves, who and what do we belong to? How do we really define ourselves? And if you're just joining us, my guest is Barbara Berger. She's an American that lives in Copenhagen right now. Her website address is BeamTeam, BeamTeam, BeamTeam.com, yes. Mm-hmm. She's an author. She's written many books. Her books has been translated into 30 different languages? Mm-hmm. Wow. Can you speak all those languages?
I don't think so. I don't think so.
Well, you know, you're a miracle woman too. You make things happen. So
thank you.
So the thing that I want listeners to get is sometimes it's easy to kind of focus on the topic, but our experience is universal.
Exactly.
And so a listener might be saying, well, I've never been displaced. But sometimes we can feel displaced even while in a family. I feel that with my family.
I've always felt that with my family.
Yes. My sister was telling me yesterday, I was on the phone talking to a friend here. Later on, my sister was talking about my dad. I can tell on him now because he's not here. If he was here, he would look at me like, don't tell that story. My sister said, Dad was like, if your mother was here, because my mom has made her transition, Dad was saying to my sister, if your mother was here, would she understand what he's saying? Because I don't. Sometimes I just don't know what he's saying. I'm speaking English. There's times when my sister and I are talking, my dad is here, and my dad will look at my sister and go, Chloe, which means, what is he talking about? But now I've learned to, I think I have, like, I just recognize it as something that is happening. And we're always trying to navigate. And the more I feel at peace with being different, because I know I am different. And everybody is different. But I just know that I am not crazy different. I mean,
okay, well, I think you're onto really something really important. In other words, if we want to feel that we belong in life and have a sense of belonging and our identity and so on, we have to understand the difference between being who we are and getting other people's love and approval. I mean, that's what really trips us up. We have to understand that we're all different. We're all coming from different points of view. We're all been programmed differently. We've all got different backgrounds. We've all got different stories. We've got all kinds of different stuff going on. And so to expect that even if it's our family, or mainly our family, that they should love, approve, and understand of us the way we truly feel we are. I mean, of course, it's my preference, but in my experience, it's never going to happen. Unfortunately, the best we can hope for is to be met with respect. That the fact that you could say that how do we navigate in terms of reality, which is this, that we're all different. We have different experiences, different ideas, different opinions, different everything, preferences, but we're all the children of God. We're all here. So if we want to have peace and harmony, it's a question about respecting our differences, not trying to, get the other person to agree with me. So your experience in your family is certainly identical to the one I've had. I mean, I was like, from a completely different universe from when I was a very small girl. But at least you can talk to your family. Mine did not end that well. I come from a really dysfunctional background, and the lack of communication and being totally rejected for who you are is really a very painful experience.
Did you get to reconcile with your parents?
No.
So they never saw your point of view, or maybe not accept it, but kind of understand why you did what you did?
The last time I saw my father, a couple of years before he died, I was with him alone for a half hour, and he cried, and he said that he was really sorry that he had never understood me. So that was the closest. But not my mother, not my brother, not the rest of the family. I have been the crazy one, the outsider, the different one. It's been very painful.
I bet. So even now, or where are you with it now? Or how do you, if it's still present, I think one of the things I do believe is sometimes we sort of do, I do, this black and white thing. But life is not black and white.
No.
Sometimes just when you think you've gone over something, it's no longer an issue anymore, you find yourself in a place like, ooh, I just noticed I felt some kind of resistance about that. I felt some kind of pain about that. So anyway.
Painful. Well, I guess the more I understand about what comforts me is I understand that we're all on an eternal journey and that we're all evolving souls and that each one of us is in a different place. And I do understand also that, as you say, you've experienced and I've experienced too, this when you're on the spiritual pathway, the things that we're doing, the majority of people are not interested in these things yet, are not thinking about these things. So we're kind of a minority and we're sort of outsiders. And anyway, my family, it was definitely very criticized that I was on this pathway. The things that they used to say to me, the insults. So I found out in the end that I just had to stay away. And the universe took care of it since I was on the other side of the globe. I didn't have to see them, fortunately. So, but again, to know that we are evolving and that there are different levels, different frequencies, different levels of consciousness is a comfort for me. Also, because if you can see it like that, then you know that each soul has to go through these different stages of development. And so, but also that the more, if you look at it, I always say it's like kind of like a pyramid, that the levels of consciousness as they raise up, there are not so many people who are as enlightened as the Dalai Lama. Or like Gandhi, or people who are very, very high in consciousness. So the fact is that the majority, the vast majority of the people are not that awake yet. It's just the way things are. We call it getting real, my son and I. That's what we call the work that we're doing. So you could say to have serenity about what is it I can do something about and what is it that I can't do anything about. I cannot do anything about the levels of consciousness of other people, but I can work on my own. I'm responsible for my own, and that my influence through the work that I do, just as your influence through the work that you do, that we are trying to spread the love, channel our wisdom and our understanding for the benefit of our fellow human beings. That's about as good as we can do.
That's it. That is so true, because more than ever, I am clear of my mission.
Yeah.
And I think there was a time where it was, and it still is, but it was a lot more teaching. Like, if you do this, this would happen. And if you talked about that level of consciousness spiraling up,
right?
I have to look to that. So, okay, there we go. So the level of, so there's still teaching that comes with it, but now it's more of a sharing and a point.
Because what I know that we are attached to what we believe.
Yep.
Whatever we believe in, we hold on to it dear life. And I had a powerful experience. I mean, a powerful experience, an example. I know it, but it's recent, and I felt it. So once again, it's around my dad. And I'm actually going to be interviewing my dad next week. So I've been doing radio for 20 years now, maybe it's not over, 20 years, since 2000, actually officially around 2004. I've been doing before that, but officially I've never interviewed my dad. Like, I didn't think like he understood me. Speaking about identity and belonging, right? Let me turn this down because I can hear it. Okay. So anyway, I got to the point where we talked about interviewing, and he's like, well, I need to know what you're going to ask. That's funny. I'm not just going to throw you on there. I have to prepare. So Sunday turned out we were talking, and we didn't even plan this. And as we were talking, I was feeling very close, because I haven't seen my dad. Last time I saw him, well, he lives in Nigeria. So he came back here, what is it, in January. So we've been really spending a lot of time together. And but before that, it's been like 13, 15 years.
Okay, so it's a really long time ago since you saw your dad.
Yes.
Wow.
Yes, a long time ago.
Yeah.
So this whole thing about identity and belonging is very real for me, very fresh for me. So I've had an opportunity to spend time with him, to learn more about him, for him to learn more about me. And one day they asked me, I digressed, they said, so how do I tell people what you do?
I say, the best way I say to people, unless they really don't know, but let me just say I'm a life coach. That's a lot easier for people. I do spirit work, I do energy work, but you know, I don't give that to anybody. Because some people are like, what do you do? I don't have time to explain. So anyway, I was talking to my dad this weekend, and I'm telling him how much I really appreciate the conversation we're having. And it was such an organic thing. And I told him how I used to say that I never had the opportunity to sit with my dad and go fishing. Because I hear friends, man, I remember going to fishing with my pops. My pops told me about relationship, about life. And I've told that story different ways of what I never had with my dad. And when I was telling the story, it was real. When I told my dad that story, I mean, he was listening. And he said, and I felt myself going like, oh shit. He was like, so you say we never talked when you were a child? I said, no, I'm not saying that. This is when I'm like, oh boy, I'm getting confronted. He said, don't you remember times when you did A, B, and C? I said, yeah, I remember that. But my point is, and was, that we didn't do things like go fishing or whatever. And as he kept reminding me of the things that we did, and I was saying the things that we did, what I realized was I took an idea from somebody else's life experience and made that be a problem because I didn't have that particular experience.
Yeah, you compare.
But there were moments with my dad that was heart to heart. And I realized how I've held on to that belief, that story, that really was distracting me from what was true. Because I remember, I told him, I remember when he was young, we'll get tweezers and we'll be pulling his hairs out of his beard and everything. And just stories. And it's still present for me. Sometimes we hold on to beliefs about who we are, about our parents, about society, politics, sexual orientation, a race of people. That is not even true. It's just bullshit that we bought into until life challenges us. It could be your parents, your friends, or a question. So,
that's a really good story.
Or wherever you want to go.
That's a really good story. It's because it was very heartfelt what you said, that you discovered a connection actually with your dad that you didn't realize that you had. Lucky you.
Yes.
Lucky you. I mean, I hear what you're saying. I mean, we're talking about a universal principle in terms of the way the mind works. That, again, I would suggest that people want this book of mine is about these principles, about what you focus your attention on grows in your experience. And so it's definitely true that whether we're talking about your father, your mother, your best friend, or society in general, or any issue, we always have a choice. Are we going to focus on, all the negative that's going on here? And then that's like we attract more of that. We're putting our energy in that. Or are we going to focus on all the good in the situation, where the love is present, what the potential is here? So that's actually what your story is. You're saying that your previous experience was that you focused actually on the things that you didn't have, and that being with him, you were able to shift the focus to what you actually did have, and how it gave you that feeling of actually love. It was a heartfelt feeling for your dad and a feeling of belonging, and that's a really cool thing. I mean, good for you. I mean, if we could do that, all of us in all of our different life situations, just think about how things would be.
Yes, and I love what you said about, talking about your book. If we have to make a choice, it is a choice to see what is real. There's something in the chat that I want to read here, which I really like. And the thing that I also want to say about identity and belonging, and that goes for anything else, is recognizing that however we're telling our story, it belongs in the bigger story. So it's no one saying, I can't believe that I said that to people about my dad. Okay, I can do that. But it belongs in the bigger story.
Of course it does.
Not only does it make me see things differently, it could help somebody else.
Yes.
In the chat room, Deborah here says, I feel quite old.
Deborah said, I love what Deborah said in the chat. She said, good morning, Ade Anifowose. That's so funny.
What did she say?
Good morning, Ade and Barbara. Have never experienced, she said, I've never experienced the level of displacement that you both have. However, your experiences seem to touch the level of loneliness and feelings of lack of belonging that some maybe all of us feel in our own families and communities. You have a level of understanding and comfort on how to survive by making your own chosen family and community. Thank you for the wisdom you're sharing that you have gained through your life experience. That touches me.
Really?
I'm happy to read that. It is powerful because that's the point. For me, that's the point for this conversation.
But you could also
it's not
say,
about do what I do,
and
but
what
it's like taking what we've done and make something out of it. See your life.
But you could also say that we're talking about the difference between our biological family and our real family, the real kinship, the real brotherhood, sisterhood of man. That the soul journey is not necessarily the family. The biological family is not necessarily, that's one of the things I've learned from all this, the true kinship. If you come, your family, I don't know that much about your background, but mine was what's called the dysfunctional family. So even though it was a biological family, there wasn't the love and support that I would get from just the people who are listening to this show, all the comments we're getting, all the people who are into this stuff. Those are, I feel, those are my true sisters and brothers. Those are the people who we're on the same wavelength. We're doing this work together. We're on this journey. So I would highly recommend that you don't fall for, because I know that's been a big issue for me, the myth of family, as I call it, that if there's not love, respect, tolerance decently in your biological family, then stay away and find the family where there is love and respect. So that's the values. That's what the goal is for me.
Yeah. And it's important for us to do the inner work.
Oh, absolutely.
And the inner work is excavated. Like one of the things for me as belonging that I think could really help people is to understand that, first of all, you're not alone. And even if you can't connect to, God is spirit and part of the universe, I get it. But, especially when you do the but, that's fine. However, you can actually look down your own ancestry. So for me, I got my mom and my dad, and I am a son. Dad's name is Alimi. I'm a son of Alimi, a son of Esther. My grandparents, they are Idris. I got this from my dad this morning. Abibat, Moses, and Alex. So when I go to my grandparents, after that, my great-grandparents, I don't know their names. And people think because I'm from Nigeria, I should be able to trace my roots all the way. No, not true. But here's what I'm saying. Why is that important? It's like we can remind ourselves, even if you don't get along with your mother or your father or you were adopted, you've got to understand that your biological parents gave life to you.
That's true.
They serve the purpose.
Yes, absolutely.
And then choose other people to fill in the blank or expand your community, expand your family. Even if you don't know your ancestors. And especially like in America, and I'm sure you can relate to this, people in America say, we don't know where we're from. I'm talking about black people. We don't know where we're from. Your ancestors live in you. They're in your DNA. They're in your blood. Now, you may not conceptually know who they are, but through spiritual practice and rituals, we get to have different experiences and remind us that we belong to everyone, that we're part of family.
We've got about 3 more minutes to go.
That's really a very, very heartfelt, very powerful thing you just said. So thank you for that. You have a strong sense of that. So again, that's great. So again, all of this stuff that's happened to you has been so valuable. I can see already. Just think about what is coming out of, the immigration system in the United States, which is all screwed up at the moment. Again, but on the other hand, there's a plan here. Just what you're saying, the wisdom that's already come to you because of the same with me, these so-called terrible experiences.
Yes.
That
horrible experience squeezed the best out of them. And it still squeezes the best. I believe that there's some experiences, there's some things we need to go through that it requires that our heart is broken.
Absolutely.
And we can't do it. Life has to do it. It's almost like the seed in the soil.
Yeah.
If you break the seed and put it in the soil, it's not going to work. You have to put it in there and just let it be. So anyway, it's time to release the show.
Okay.
And anything you want our listeners to know what you're up to,